It's time for the Donald. Donald Trump, this has really been building maybe the last week or so, and I'm wondering if you thought the same thing I did, that is this for real? Is Donald Trump really thinking about running for president? He says it's for real. We talked to him earlier today. He told us again and again he is very serious about doing this. Here's the Donald. Well, first, thanks for the time here. I think everybody wants to know just how serious you are about running for president. So how serious are you?
Well, David, I'm very serious. I view the things that are happening to this country, it's just so bad. The lack of respect that we get from the rest of the world, I don't think we've ever had a period of time like this, other than maybe for a period with Jimmy Carter with the Iran hostages, but we're right in that category. If you look at what's going on with China, the way they're just absolutely taking advantage of this country and our leaders, absolutely. I mean, we're rebuilding China. They're taking all of our jobs, and they're manufacturing everything that we're using and so many products, and other countries also. Or if you look at OPEC and what they're doing to the price of oil, and we just don't have the people, we just don't have the leadership to tell these people it's not going to happen.
And President Obama's caused this lack of respect? How's he done that?
Well, President Obama is very disappointing. It's sad when he gives the president of China a five-star dinner at the White House when the president of China has done nothing but take advantage of our country. And, you know, if you look at what they've done with the manipulation of the currency, look at what they did with their gymnasts. I mean, they put them in, they said, no, they're of age, they're of age. It turned out they were way below age, and, you know, they won all these gold medals, and it's disgraceful. You look at what they did during the Olympics again, where they had this beautiful singer, and they were all talking about what a great voice, but it wasn't her singing, it was somebody else, and then they apologized. So they're doing the same thing on a much larger scale with us, and it's very, very unfair. What they've done with the manipulation of their currency makes it impossible for our companies to compete, and I know how to stop it.
Let's talk about the country's financial situation as a business guy here. Do you agree that last November voters went to the polls in many ways looking at the spending of this country? They look at this national debt that's approaching $15 trillion. If you get in there, what do you cut? What wouldn't you cut?
Well, you cut a lot, but you can also get a lot from, let me give you another example, South Korea. A month and a half ago, we sent our ships over to protect South Korea. Did they pay us anything? No. We sent the great aircraft carrier, the George Washington, over to protect South Korea against North Korea. South Korea makes hundreds of billions of dollars of, let's call it, profit against our country. Did we get reimbursed for sending this huge fleet of ships over to protect them? Absolutely not. We signed, instead, I'll tell you, the reimbursement is they signed a horrible trade agreement that only a fool would make from our standpoint, and they didn't even want to make it. They wanted to make it better, except when bombs got lobbed over there, all of a sudden they decided to sign it. But it's one of the worst agreements. It gives them the right to sell, and it's very hard for us to have the right to sell. So I look at the kind of deals that we make. You wouldn't have to raise taxes. You may be able to lower taxes. We have 10,000 troops in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't pay us. I mean, they rip us on oil on a constant daily basis. They live like kings. They fly around in 747 jets, and we have soldiers over there protecting them, and they pay us nothing. So when you look at so many different things, I could go one after another. I mean, we have soldiers in England. We have soldiers all over the place. I mean, for what? Nobody respects this country.
Okay, so aside from that, does that mean that, but how do we get this debt under control? Do you think we have to look at everything? Is there anything you don't cut?
You really have to look at everything. And I must tell you, the Republicans and the Democrats are starting to say, and it's very interesting because you have the entitlements and you have all of the other things that people are saying have to be cut, and nobody wants to bring it up. But they're really starting to say now that they're going to have to look at that, whether they like it or not.
But don't you think they're scared to do that?
Well, politically, for the first time this morning, it was very interesting. I heard where both Republicans and Democrats are getting together on entitlements, which is, of course, the big thing. And they're getting together on entitlements. Everything's going to have to be looked at, whether people like it or not. But they're starting to look at it. And probably unless I'm really 100% right about the ripoff of our country by other countries, in which case you wouldn't have to cut very much at all, because the kind of numbers you're talking about are astronomical. But the Republicans and Democrats are looking at some things that I think are going to cause them potentially political problems. Whether it's right or wrong, we won't discuss that now, but I think it will cause them actually some political problems.
Mark Zandi from Moody's has cautioned Republicans that if they get this $60 billion, $61 billion worth of cuts through, that it will actually hurt the economic recovery. Do you think there's a danger to cutting?
Well, there's always a danger to cutting if you cut the wrong programs. If you're going to cut, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to cut the right problems. So you have to, otherwise you'll create problems. You have to create you have to cut the right program. If you don't do that, certainly it can be a negative.
You talked about taxes and possibly lowering them. In our state, for the most part, they're looking at lowering taxes, property taxes, commercial taxes, but on the other side, they're looking at raising casino taxes. Is it ever good to raise taxes?
Well, it's never a good thing. Casinos are a little bit different than other things. I mean, if you're talking about growing corn, and if you're talking about some other that I consider to be more important elements of the world, to be honest with you, that's one thing. Casino taxes are a little bit different. But raising taxes is never a great thing.
How do you do this dance about running or not running here? You have a day job, obviously, with The Apprentice. It has its, well, you have many day jobs, frankly. But
I have many day jobs, that's true.
You got to worry about The Apprentice and other things.
That's true.
We're starting to see these folks start to come in here, do their little dance, talk a little bit. We have a couple of rather early high-profile events, one next week, one later in the month with Western Iowa Congressman Steve King. Are you looking at that?
Well, they've asked me about it. I will say this. I am very seriously considering, I hate what's happening with respect to the country. I'm very seriously considering running. I'll be deciding by June. I have many things happening that are very positive things. My company is doing phenomenally well. We've done, as you understand, it's been an amazing company, and we've done an amazing job. But I don't see anybody on the horizon that's going to be able to negotiate with OPEC, negotiate with so many different countries, make great trade agreements favorable to us instead of rip-off trade agreements. I just don't see it. The politicians, I don't see it. So I'll be making a decision by June. I look forward to making the decision. I can't make the decision until then because, as you know, it's a very major television show that goes on, and I'm not allowed to make the decision during the course of the show. Otherwise, other people would get equal time. But I look forward to making the decision, and it'll be made by June. Well, and I'll be spending a lot of time in Iowa if I decide to run.
Well, what do you say to the voters who like people who have been governors because they have that type of experience? And, we're looking at Palin, Huckabee, Romney. What makes your experience better than theirs to make up for the fact you've never been a governor, a senator, a congressman?
Well, I think because I started from a very low base and I built up a net worth that's over $7 billion. And, that means something, I think. I think that's a lot better than some guy who's been a governor and just sort of routinely runs a state. Now, nowadays, it's not as routine anymore. Nowadays, it's getting a lot harder. But I think that whether you're a senator or a governor, I think my experience is a lot better. And I know nothing but governors. I know many of the governors. I deal with these governors. Some of them are friends of mine. Some of them I don't respect, and they're not friends of mine. But many of the governors that not only are we talking about, but throughout the country. I had, as an example, the governor of Florida, Rick Scott, was up in my office yesterday. We spent over an hour together. I've been dealing with governors all of my life. I've been dealing with mayors all of my life. I understand it. But I built up a tremendous company with a great net worth, and I think that means much more than being a governor for 4 years.
Let me ask you this. In these economic times we have right now, do people look at very wealthy people differently? Are they mad? Are they bitter? Do they want a really rich guy leading? Is there any kind of resentment? As you know, some people say, "Hey, tax the rich. That's what's gonna solve us right now." Do they want a really rich guy to be our president?
Well, I think it's a very interesting question. I think they'd like to have a guy. Let's say a guy like me. I've made a lot of money. I've made great deals. I've made great deals with China. I made deals that are phenomenal with Chinese partners and Chinese people. They're phenomenal deals. Nobody took advantage of me like they're taking advantage of the country. I think in one sense, depending on the person, I really think that they'd view somebody like me saying, look, I'm going to put my company aside, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to devote a lot of time to bringing this country back, and to really and very strongly making money for this country so that this country can be great again. Because right now it's not great. In 12 years, China is going to be the great economic power. You know that. I know it. Everybody knows it. The way we're going, it could even be sooner than that. And there's no reason that should happen. And if you would have said that 5 years ago, it would have been unthinkable. So if you have somebody, and I love what I'm doing. I wish I didn't have to do this. I love what I'm doing. I love exactly what I'm doing. But I don't see anybody on the horizon, and I really love this country, and I don't like what's happening to our country.
Last question. In how many years could you knock out the federal debt, realistically?
I think I could do it much faster than anybody else. I don't want to give a number, but I think I could do it much faster than anybody else. And believe me, China, OPEC, India, Mexico, these are countries, they will not be taking advantage of the United States any longer if I became president.
All right, Donald Trump, we appreciate the time. Look forward to talking to you when you start coming to our state.
Thank you very much, David.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Bye.